Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info. Leading black British theatre company Talawa, which will celebrate its 35th birthday in 2021, is releasing a series of short online films titled Tales from the Frontline during the time it is not able to perform live on stage, that examine the experiences of black frontline workers during the coronavirus pandemic through monologues compiled from the words of real people through interviews. I spoke to Talawa's artistic director Michael Buffong, who also directed the first of the films, in early December 2020, by which point 2 of the proposed 6 films had been released, one from the perspective of a schoolteacher and the other an NHS recovery worker. I asked Michael to explain a bit about the project as a whole.
For me, Tales from the Frontline is really, it's a documentation of the contribution of black frontline workers. Yeah. I realized that a lot of their contribution wasn't being recorded. I mean, I think in one of the films, the teacher says, there was a time when people were looking at NHS workers being interviewed and there were no black NHS workers, which is quite strange considering how much of the NHS is made up of black people. Yeah. And it just made me think I would like to do something to make sure that in 10, 20 years' time, when this period is looked back upon, you can see the contributions of those frontline workers, of black frontline workers, because, as I've said in kind of numerous bits and pieces of press, if it wasn't for that, we'd be looking at Windrush scandal. Yeah. We'd be looking at Brexit. We'd be looking at hostilities that are saying basically, we might not want people who look like you to be here. And it turns out that these are the very people who are keeping the country up, are keeping the country afloat. It's just so, it's ironic.
It is, because, the last few years I've spent quite a few, with my father, I've spent quite a few hours in hospitals and care homes and places like that. And, most of the people are black or South Asian or, non-white of some description.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I thought it was important to document it. Yeah. To have a legacy of it. It also came at a time, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We were looking at a lot of freelancers who were, losing livelihoods, and how could Talawa help in this way? And I thought, well, if we could find a way of documentation, a way of recording this could be work for freelancers, which would be great, which is what we've done. I also thought it was important because it also becomes the voice of our community, which I think great. That's what we want to do here at Talawa. And also, the project is attached to a charity, which is Black Minds Matter, which I thought is really a really important thing to do and to support, because mental health issues within the black community is quite a major thing. Yeah. And I think that's something that as a company at this time, these are things that we can help here. We can do this and still have a creative artistic output, while doing all of these things. So that was the kind of thrust of the project.
Of course, everybody's lives have been changed by the pandemic, but why did you think it was necessary to specifically show a black perspective on it?
Well, because I think it was in danger of not being recorded. Yeah, I think it was in danger, like we said with those posters and the interviews, of the black contribution not being documented. Yeah, and I thought, no, that we're in a position to do that. And it's something we should do. So that's why it's from the black perspective.
And there have been differences as well. You mentioned about mental health, but also the coronavirus seems to have affected black people more for reasons that we still don't know yet, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, again, in the first film, the teacher said, Martin realized, that it disproportionately affects, as she says in the film, the BAME community. It's like it hurts. So you're doubly affected. You are more likely to, contract COVID, and you're in a position where it makes you doubly likely to contract the disease because of your job. Yeah, yeah. So it's like a double whammy. And I just thought these are important things that need to be said and need to be heard.
And need to be recorded for posterity.
And have to be recorded.
The process was what's known as verbatim theatre, where you were taking the words of real people. Can you just explain what the process has? Were there multiple people that were put together?
No. That's one person. It is a verbatim piece of work. So we had our interviewers go out and meet frontline and key workers. Yeah. These interviews were recorded. The text from the interviews were then, set down. And sometimes it's like between an hour and 3 hours worth of recordings, and they were edited down so we could make these 15-minute films. My thinking is that eventually these will end up on stage. Yeah. The full-length pieces will end up on stage. And as it were, this is like a taste of it, the 10-minute pieces. But they are all individual. It's one person's voice. That is her interview. We've just got actors, delivering it.
But these are more than a lot of the monologues, particularly that we've seen during lockdown. It's just somebody in front of a webcam. But these are made as proper films, really, aren't they? Yes. I think that's the kind of the creativity bit. Was like how do we tell these stories is the big question. Yeah. We've got the verbatim material, but how do we tell the stories? And that we've got how many we're probably by the time all done, it'd be 6 different directors. So it's how do they respond to each piece? How would they like to use the material? Sometimes it's the camera, sometimes it's voiceover, depending on what the director feels. Sometimes there's movement. I kind of like the use of Fubu Nation in the one I did. Yeah. I think that really helped deepen the narrative. It's like what you can't even say anymore. What it feels like. It feels like this. And these movements portray a feeling, and I kind of like the idea of that. Because, we are still making art, if you like. Yeah. That's the idea. The dance pieces that you incorporated in yours, they show something else that is very difficult to do anymore. They show very close physical contact between two people, don't they? Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, it does. It's quite interesting that, we see that now and it looks so like, wow, how are you able to do that? Can we do that anymore? Yeah. And we will, of course. There will be a time when we get through this and that, maybe in 5 years from now, we might not view it in the same way that we do right today. But there's something about how they respond to the spoken words, how they're responding to the situation that I thought the piece, another language. Yeah, because not long ago I was talking to somebody from one of our local theatres, and he said he's not even sure whether you should sort of shake hands with somebody anymore, how you should approach them, how you should stand in the lift with somebody. It's everybody's very wary at the moment, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah, in the middle of this, apart from the pandemic, of course, there was, right in the middle of it, was the George Floyd murder. It's been assessed as a murder. And, of course, the massive worldwide reaction to that. So, of course, that's got to be reflected in any coverage of the pandemic, but particularly, I would imagine, from a company like yours. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it's a seismic moment in history. My response was like absolute, complete and utter disbelief and anger and rage and, And I think similarly to the people we've interviewed in the Tales, for instance, they said if you had done this a week before, I might be feeling slightly differently. Yeah. But since this has happened, it has forced me to look at my life, look at things I have been denying or not facing up to, or people I'm not challenging, and it changed all of that. And I think that's where we are. That's where the world is, and I think it's got to be the positive thing out of all of this for change. It was an interesting comment from the teacher in the piece that you directed, the first one, that she said if she hadn't have been in lockdown, if she'd have still been at work with colleagues in the staff room, then she might have reacted more angrily with, more argumentative with other people. Yeah. I think what's interesting in the full transcript, what she says is, she might have gone to work and been angry, but what lockdown did is that it forced her, because what she does go on to say, which is because it's a much longer piece, she said it forced us all to have to face whatever it was, because on another day, if she wasn't in lockdown, she would have gone in, she would have got angry with whoever else in the staff room. The kids would have been like, what work am I doing? Then it would have been back on the bus, home, food, get up the next day, prep her books, Yeah. But now there wasn't any work. There wasn't any kids. There wasn't anything in the staff room. There was just the incident and what it made you feel and what you want to do about that.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
It forced you to confront it all.
And her particular reaction to it was to create art, wasn't it? Creating lino prints.
Yes. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
The work is quite amazing when you look at it. I couldn't quite believe it when we saw it. We're like, this is what you do? Does anybody know you do this? It's stunning pieces of work.
Which you feature in the film, of course. And
I think that's another thing. I just thought we have to show this because it's about, there's another piece coming about someone who works in a supermarket. And that's so interesting when, because a lot of the people we've interviewed have these, have other talents. It's incredible.
Yes.
And I think part of this is being able to say, well, let's show this.
Yeah. Right. So, it's amazing who has become a hero of the past few months because, there are the obvious ones, maybe teachers and health workers that you featured in the first, it might be obvious, but maybe not supermarket workers. Yodel drivers was probably the biggest change. They go from some of the most hated people to heroes that we're all applauding for bringing us all of our groceries and all our goods. So,
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
You're featuring those people as well, the less obvious heroes.
Yes. It's just an incredible time, I think. Just an incredible time. And I think the fourth film will be quite interesting because that is from someone who works in a supermarket. And she said something that's really just interesting in terms of frontline workers, key workers. She said she suddenly found herself, I'm a key worker because I work in a supermarket. Yeah. And how how she had been perceived before the pandemic and how she'd been perceived after the pandemic was such an interesting shift.
Yes.
I just think, let's hear that story from from her perspective.
Yeah. And you said before about the sudden lack of work for theatre workers, including you and your company, of course. But how has the pandemic affected you as a theatre maker, do you think? Has it affected your outlook on making art?
I think what's been interesting is that those of us who are fortunate to be in a position where we're still looking at ways to produce work, the whole digital thing has been quite interesting. Tales wouldn't have existed, I think, in this format with this reach had it not been for the fact that we're forced into using a digital media. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting development. And I think a lot of theatre companies, venues are now looking at how do we incorporate this new way of producing work until we get back in the theatre. And I think even when we're back in the theatre, I still think it will be part of the creativity. Yeah. We had been seeing it. We've been seeing in certain theatres kind of very big digital backdrops to create, scenery. Yes. And now I think, wow, that's going to move even further now because it's about distribution. Yes. Yeah. Suddenly, Tales has a worldwide reach as opposed to from our studio. Hypothetically, because it's on YouTube, it can be accessed from anywhere. So that's quite interesting. Of course, we want theatre to be back because the main thing about, not the main thing, the thing about theatre is that it's a shared communal experience in a space altogether. Yeah. And that it can't be replicated digitally. It just can't. And that's the power and that's the kind of, magic we're all wanting to get back to. Yeah. Even social distancing takes some of that away, doesn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It does. Have you created work in a theatre in the past? Well, since March? No, we haven't. But we are hoping to create something by hopefully April, May next year. Yeah. Back in our space. That's our plan, and we hope we can. We're in a different place now. There's a vaccine, and we'll see what relief that brings for us all. In the world as well as in our industry. Talawa was founded, it's your 35th anniversary, actually, next year, isn't it? It's our 35th next year. And, absolutely. So big celebrations, hopefully, if it's allowed. Hopefully, yes. No, absolutely. And this is what, we're moving towards that. So we've got the Black Joy season happening in the autumn of 2021. Really looking forward to that. Another 2 tales will be released at the beginning of the 35th year, which is next year. we've got another exciting project to talk, which probably I can't talk about yet, but it'll happen in May time.
Yeah.
So we've got some exciting stuff lined up, and some of it is digital, and some of it is live.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of the two. But yeah, here we are, 35 years on, still probably even more relevant. We kind of doubled down on our message now. So.
But do you think that the message has changed obviously it's still relevant for you to be speaking on behalf of black artists or representing the black areas of the community, but do you think the message has changed in the past 35 years at all?
Has it changed? I think the message remains the same. I think there are some bits that have been changed, but I think it's still important to recognise that there are still vast inequalities in our industry. That's what we've been challenging for 35 years, and that's still a battle. There is change, definitely, but there's still so much more to do. And I think, in the light of Black Lives Matter as well, it's kind of crystallized everything and forcing everybody to look at it, to look at the scenario, look at the biases, look at the injustices, look at it all, Yeah. And as I said, Talawa's been doing that for 35 years, and now it's like, this is what we do. And we can now double down on that and continue to do it even more so.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember 1986, and at the time, I think the National Front was still around. Since then, we've obviously had the BNP and...
EDL.
Yes, various other groups. So the face changes, but, their message is still the same. So I suppose you've still got to confront it, haven't you?
Yes, you do. You do. It hasn't gone away, In fact, it feels like it's becoming even more prevalent. I think, with people without getting too crazy, like Donald Trump in power, it's emboldened a lot of attitudes which, 10 years ago you would have thought who would have thought you could go and say that in public?
Yeah.
Or, how have we got to a place where some of these actions are normalized?
Yeah. Yeah.
How have we got to a place where, racial intolerance is normalized? Xenophobia is normalized. Islamophobia is normalized. How have we got here? Who has allowed this? Who has said it's okay to have these thoughts? It's fine.
Yeah.
Or actually, not that it's fine. People can have thoughts, but these thoughts can be actions, and it's right that they're action. That makes me fight. Like, go, wow. There's still a major struggle, fight on.
Do you think there's a class issue as well, particularly in theatre, because theatres are still being criticised, theatres themselves, not just the audiences, but the people who run theatres being dominated by middle classes. So do you think there's a class issue that's preventing representation as well?
I think there's definitely a class issue within theatre, yes, absolutely, and it's about access, for everyone.
Yeah.
All of us, and now it's probably going to be even more crucial, because as we head into recession, lack of money, everybody's thinking, well, who's really got the money to be in this industry, to invest in studying, or invest in, keeping that dream going while you wait for your first play to land, or, your first, second, third acting role or directing job. It does become, I think class is very much a part of the struggle as well.
You've done quite a variety of work yourself, even before Talawa. I've seen a lot of your work at the Royal Exchange, and going back to, more recent years, it's been co-productions with Talawa. So you've been introducing all black casts to like Guys and Dolls the musical, and King Lear, All My Sons, Arthur Miller. But you've done you did Private Lives in the past. It's quite a range of different styles of theatre that you do, isn't it? And you did Raisin in the Sun, which of course is a classic, American classic. What interests you about a project? Because, some of these are very serious plays, and then Guys and Dolls is a Broadway musical.
I think maybe just my taste is quite eclectic.
Yeah.
I quite like a lot of different things, and I like things that kind of really chime with me emotionally, and whatever that emotion may be, whether it's laughter or sadness or anger or rage, whatever, And I think this, as a director, just been fortunate to be able to go, oh, wow, yeah. King Lear, one of the greatest, piece of work in the canon.
Yeah.
It's great to have the opportunity to do that, so I'll do that. And Private Lives, it's great fun. as was 6 Degrees of Separation.
Yeah.
And, and Raising in the Sun. These are great works, and they come along. I mean, I think when one starts one's career, you kind of have a list of plays you'd like to do, or you're encouraged to have one. And I've kind of, quite slowly ticking loads of them off on my list.
Yeah.
And Guys and Dolls, I mean, I'd always, from many years ago, kind of loved the idea of, Guys and Dolls.
Yeah.
And just having the, chance to do it, jumped at it.
It was great fun as well. It was a great show for Christmas.
It was lovely, yeah.
With some new arrangements, and you moved it to the end of Broadway as well, didn't you? So
yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yeah, it just made absolute sense to me. I just couldn't believe it hadn't been thought of before, to be quite honest. So, literally just move a few blocks up the road, you're in the whole, you're in the world.
So how did you get involved with the Royal Exchange in the first place? Because you've done a lot of work there over the years, haven't you?
Yeah. My first involvement with the Royal Exchange, I think, happened about many years ago. And I had a play on there. I think it might have been a Roy Williams play, was on tour and was there. And I met one of the associate directors, Jason Murray. And we just got talking. And he had, we were trying to do something else. I can't remember what it was now. I'm not sure if it happened. I don't think it did happen. But he had another idea for, he wanted to do 2 South African plays. And he would do one and I would do one. And that was my first introduction to the Exchange. And I really enjoyed it up there. And they said, we're thinking about doing this play. What, would you like to do it? And I think I was trying to do another. That's what I remember now. So there was another play. I was trying to get to Defensive. That's what it was. I was really trying to do Defensive, and I just couldn't land it. I couldn't land it for various reasons. And then I saw 6 Degrees of Separation, and it really chimed with me. It really chimed with me, and I thought, this would be great fun, and it's funny, and it's saying something. So that was my first show at the Exchange, was 6 Degrees of Separation, which was great. I loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and you've worked with some really great actors there over the years as well. People like Don Warrington and Ray Fear and Donia Kroll.
Yeah. O.T. Fagbenley.
Yes, and that was in that first one, wasn't it? You worked with him.
Yeah. He was doing phenomenal stuff now. I watch him, in Hollywood or wherever he makes those shows. Yeah, so I'm really lucky to work with some superb superb actors over the years. And designers and musicians, a great bunch of very, very talented and creative artists. I feel very fortunate to have worked with. And
now you've got at Talawa, you've got the anniversary coming up, and lots of work planned for that. So is there anything else that you personally have got apart from that?
No, my next year is pretty much, involved in Talawa and getting all the things that we're trying to get going for that 35th.
Yeah.
I haven't got anything outside of that. I did do, my last kind of freelance gig was I did Oliver, a radio version of Oliver. That was quite good. That was quite good fun.
Yeah.
Quite recently, just reset it in in Lagos, and he makes his way over to London. That was really good.
Yeah. This current project, anyway, back to Tales from the Frontline. Yeah. Two of them have been released. There are another 4 to come out, and then that hopefully will be a stage production at some point.
I'm hoping that what will happen is that there will be a stage version of Tales from the Frontline. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure, that might not be until 2022.
Yeah.
Given the workload we've got going for next year, but that's my ambition for those pieces, because there's so much more material that needs to be seen. So that's why I'm penciling in terms of activity for Talawa.
And quite possibly a few more stories to be told before the pandemic ends as well.
Yes, I would have thought so. There's a few more people to hear from.
That was Michael Buffong talking about Talawa Theatre Company's Tales from the Frontline, which can be watched for free on Talawa's website and YouTube channel, although donations are being requested for the charity Black Minds Matter UK, as Michael mentioned in the interview. For more information, see www.talawa, that's TALAWA.com. You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.